My name is Adrian Kessler. At 34, I've seen more death than most people see in a lifetime. As a combat medic with the 173rd Airborne, I've held pressure on wounds while mortars screamed overhead, carried fallen soldiers across desert sands so their families could say goodbye, and made split-second decisions that meant the difference between someone's child coming home or not. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day my own mother stood in a courtroom and told me I didn't deserve to wear my country's highest honor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as I sat in my dress blues, every ribbon and medal precisely placed, boots polished to mirror shine. The courthouse was sterile, cold, designed to strip away humanity and leave only facts, but facts, I was learning, could be weapons in the wrong hands. My sister Rebecca sat at the plaintiff's table like she belonged there, shoulder to shoulder with our mother, both dressed in funeral black as if mourning something that hadn't died yet. They hadn't looked at me once since I'd entered the room. Not when the bailiff called my name, not when I walked to the witness stand with measured steps, each one echoing like rifle shots in the marble-floored chamber. Adrian Kessler, please approach the stand. I rose slowly, feeling the weight of every medal on my chest, every ribbon earned through blood and sacrifice, but before I could raise my right hand to swear in, my mother shot up from her seat like a spring-loaded trap. That medal, her voice cracked like a whip across the silent courtroom. She doesn't deserve to wear that. The air seemed to thicken. Even the judge looked startled, his reading glasses sliding down his nose. A pause hung in the courtroom like smoke after gunfire. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice dripping with calculated contempt. She's not a real soldier. That Medal of Honor is nothing but a PR stunt. The judge cleared his throat but didn't speak. The bailiff shifted uncomfortably. No one stopped them, so I did what none of them expected. I reached up with steady hands, the same hands that had sutured wounds under enemy fire, and unpinned the Medal of Honor from my chest. The weight of it surprised me, heavier than I remembered, as if it had absorbed all the moments it represented. I laid it gently on the wooden surface beside the microphone, and the soft clink of metal against would seem to reverberate through the entire courthouse. That silence used to shame me, growing up in a house where silence was punishment, where withheld words cut deeper than any blade. I had learned to fear the quiet spaces between conversations, but not today. Today, that silence meant I had nothing left to prove to people who had already decided I was guilty. Rebecca's attorney rose with practiced confidence, his cologne preceding him like a warning. He began weaving his narrative with surgical precision, using selective photos and carefully cropped video clips. He painted me as an opportunist who had returned home uninvited, overridden medical decisions, manipulated a vulnerable father for financial gain. He projected a photograph onto the courtroom screen, me holding my father's hand in the hospital, his face gaunt but peaceful. Another image flashed up, me unlocking the old storage shed in our backyard, searching for documents. They framed every act of love as trespass, every moment of care as control. I didn't look away. My court-appointed attorney had instructed me not to speak until we had something irrefutable, so I remained silent while they repainted my life in ugly, dishonest brushstrokes. No one in that room knew what our house smelled like at 2 a.m. when Dad couldn't breathe, his lungs rattling like broken machinery. No one saw how his trembling hand stilled only when I held it, or counted the sleepless nights I spent in that hallway chair, flashlight on my lap, listening to every shift in his breathing pattern. No one cared about the mold I swept from corners that summer, the dust that settled in my lungs as I tried to make that house livable again. And maybe that's what made their betrayal cut so deep. It wasn't just lies, it was being forgotten on purpose. On the second day of the hearing, Rebecca wore another black dress, this one with sleeves just long enough to suggest mourning but not so modest as to miss the cameras waiting outside. She kept one arm wrapped protectively around our mother's shoulders, playing the role of grieving daughter in what felt like a made-for-TV movie. I watched from my seat and said nothing. Then she stood with rehearsed poise. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit a short video into the record. It was captured by the hallway security camera the night before my father passed away." My attorney didn't object. He didn't even look surprised, which told me everything I needed to know about how this trial was going to end. The screen flickered to life with static, then resolved into a grainy hallway shot, dim lighting, familiar walls, a door I knew too well, and there I was, pixelated but unmistakably me, standing outside my father's bedroom at what must have been near midnight. My voice echoed from the speakers, sharp and emotional. "You never respected me. All I ever did was try." A pause, then his voice, faint but audible. "You disrespected the family name. You never wanted a daughter." I shot back, pain bleeding through the anger. "You wanted a soldier to parade around, and look what you became," he snapped. Silence stretched between us on the recording, heavy with years of unspoken hurt. Then my voice again, cracked and raw, "Maybe I became what you made me." The screen went dark. No context, no next frame, no sound of the door opening again 5 minutes later, no footage of me kneeling at his bedside afterward, telling him I didn't mean it, that I was sorry, that I stayed not for pride but for love. None of that made it into Rebecca's carefully curated cut. The courtroom shifted like a living thing. I heard murmurs behind me, the soft tisk of disapproval, someone clearing their throat too loudly. My mother pulled a tissue from her clutch with mechanical precision and dabbed at tears that never quite fell. The judge turned to me. "Miss Kessler, would you like to respond?" I rose and walked to the microphone. For a moment, I considered explaining everything, the fight, the reconciliation, the way his hand clutched mine just an hour later when he whispered, "I was too hard on you, kiddo. I was scared I'd lose you like I lost everything else." But when I looked at Rebecca, she was already smiling, just slightly, not for the room, just for me. I turned to the judge and said, "No response, Your Honor." My lawyer leaned in as I sat down. "We could cross-examine the footage," he whispered urgently. I shook my head. They wanted me to flinch, to perform, to dance to their tune, but I wasn't on trial to earn their version of the truth. I had already lived mine. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's restraint. The judge had begun to speak, his voice measured and final, the kind that signaled the beginning of a conclusion no one could stop. He shuffled the papers before him and tapped them once against the bench, an unconscious gesture that every soldier in the room recognized as a closing ritual. My throat tightened, not from fear or anger, but from the hollow certainty that I was about to be erased again. And then the door opened. Not loudly, just a soft creak, almost apologetic. Heads turned, but no one moved at first. It was the kind of entrance that didn't need noise to demand attention. The man who stepped through wasn't wearing a suit. He didn't carry a briefcase or look like any lawyer who belonged in that courtroom. He wore a full military dress uniform, pressed to perfection, adorned with ribbons and medals that spanned decades of service, silver hair cropped close, posture like a steel rod, presence like a storm waiting for permission to speak. General Raymond Hartwell. I hadn't seen him in 5 years, but I knew, everyone knew, even the judge paused mid-sentence, blinking like he was recalibrating reality. The entire courtroom shifted. You could feel it in the air, the way people straightened their backs, the way whispers died mid-breath. My mother's lips parted in shock. Rebecca's face went a shade paler. The general walked to the center of the room, uninvited and unbothered by protocol. He turned to the judge and said, "Sir, if I may." The judge, clearly stunned, managed only a nod. General Hartwell turned toward the gallery, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded respect in places where hesitation meant death. "I won't take long. I'm here because she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone in this room." He looked directly at me, not through me, then turned back to the court. "I'm the one she saved." Silence fell like snow, heavy, clean, undeniable. "I was trapped in an ambush outside Marja," he continued, each word measured and precise. "Convoy disabled, communications down, half my men dead or dying. I had shrapnel in my back and a broken leg that had me pinned under a Humvee." He paused, and I could see the weight of memory in the way he breathed. "And through the smoke and chaos, she came, 18 years old, dragging another wounded soldier over her shoulder, bullet wound in her thigh, rifle still slung across her back because she never stopped being ready to fight." I closed my eyes for just a second, feeling the phantom heat of that desert day, tasting sand and blood and smoke. "She refused to leave me," he said. "I ordered her to go. I begged her to save herself and the soldier she was already carrying. She looked me straight in the eye and said, 'You're not dead yet, sir. Let's keep it that way.'" A sound escaped from someone in the gallery, a choked breath, maybe a gasp. "And she carried me." A 130-pound medic carried a 200-pound general and another soldier half a mile through enemy fire to the extraction point. "Because that's who she is." He turned to the judge. "Whatever story they've built around her in this room, I need this court to understand something. I owe my life to her. That's not opinion or sentiment. That's documented history." Then he looked at me and saluted. Not a courtesy nod or polite gesture, but a formal, military salute, every muscle precise, publicly earned. And for the first time since this trial began, I let myself breathe. Because honor, when spoken by someone who remembers, doesn't need defense, it just needs to be witnessed. General Hartwell didn't sit down. He stood at the center of the courtroom like a monument no one had planned for. From inside his coat, he pulled out a sealed folder, thick, official, with government markings along the edge. "This," he said, holding it steady, is the original Medal of Honor nomination packet, filed 7 years ago, not by me, not by the unit command. He paused and looked directly at me. It was filed by Colonel Thomas Kessler. My breath caught. My father. The courtroom seemed to lean forward as one. The judge blinked slowly. Rebecca stiffened like her spine had turned to glass. General Hartwell opened the folder and pulled out a document on heavy stock paper with a blue and gold seal in the corner. At the bottom, in unmistakable ink, was my father's signature. Not forged, not copied, signed with the same careful precision he'd used to sign my report cards years ago. Something inside me cracked, not broke, but shifted, like a beam that had been holding too much weight for too long. Colonel Kessler submitted this nomination through a classified channel. The general continued. He requested discretion. Said he didn't want Washington turning her into a symbol before she was ready. Said she needed time and space to be human before she was a hero. My chest tightened. He hadn't erased me. He had tried to protect me, but in doing so, he'd let me stand in shadows I didn't deserve. Rebecca's voice cut through the moment like glass. There's no proof it's authentic. It could be fabricated. General Hartwell turned to her with the patience of someone who had dealt with skeptics in life-or-death situations. This packet is logged in the Department of Defense archive at Fort Belvoir. Reference number 2018 MOH0847. Dated, witnessed, filed. You can verify it yourself. Rebecca said nothing after that. Because some truths don't need defenders, they only need daylight. And for the first time in years, mine had found the sun. The final revelation came from an unexpected source. Danielle Holloway, my father's private nurse during his last months, had been subpoenaed by someone, though she never said who. She entered the courtroom like a woman crossing a personal battlefield, clutching her purse like it contained her conscience. Her testimony was brief but devastating. Rebecca had paid her $25,000 to delete the full security footage from Dad's room, keeping only the fragment that made me look manipulative and cruel. But Danielle had kept a copy, not from nobility, she admitted with shame, but from fear. The full video told a different story. Yes, we had fought that night, but it also showed what happened after, me returning to his room, kneeling beside his bed, both of us apologizing. It showed him taking my hand and saying, "The house should go to Adrienne. She's the one who stayed. She held me when I couldn't breathe." When the judge's gavel fell with finality, it was soft, almost ceremonial. The property remained mine, but more importantly, the truth had been spoken in a room that had tried so hard to bury it. Behind me, an older veteran in a worn ball cap stood and placed his hand over his heart. Others followed, a silent salute not for the medal or the court's ruling, but for the choice to stay upright in a room designed to break me. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca gave her statement to the press with practiced composure. I never lied. I protected our father's legacy from confusion. The cameras loved her poise, her certainty. But the world had already seen enough. Later that week, I returned to the house, not as a victor, but as someone ready to rebuild. I didn't hang the Medal of Honor in some place of prominence. I placed it in a drawer beside a photo of Dad, not in uniform but laughing in the backyard with sawdust on his hands from some long-forgotten project. Because some honors aren't meant for display, they're meant to be remembered, quietly, by the people who know what they really cost. The silence in that house isn't punishment anymore, now it's peace. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you in next video.